Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Historical Humans podcast. My name is Justin Woods, and I'm joined today by my fellow co-hosts, Colum, Coleman, and Aaron Gilpin. And
Yo.
because it is January, it is the height of winter in the Northern Hemisphere, we decided to talk about quite a chilling topic in a land far north, once inhabited by Vikings.
That's right. We're going all the way to Iceland, and not just because it's on fire at the present moment.
I hear it's a hot topic right now.
Yep. We're going to discuss the Althing of Iceland, which proclaims itself and boasts as the world's oldest continuous Congress.
Ooh. Nordic democracy. We love to see it.
Does theirs actually get things done?
I have no idea.
If you're Icelandic, please let us know your political statements down below.
Do they still do this?
This is still in operation today.
It's continuous.
I want to go. I want to go.
It's continuous. It's continuous. So the Althing, we're going to do a couple things, is basically Iceland's version of the British Parliament or the American Congress. However, it has its own way of doing things. For one thing, it is a unicameral legislature. What that means is there's one body. There is no passing this between chambers. There is no multiple votes and back and forth. There's one group of people. They make the decision.
Okay, but they're all like cousins. I mean, a lot of people in Iceland are very closely related, I imagine it's just like an extended family party.
I mean, I don't get along with a lot of my family.
These people are descended from Vikings. An extended family party is probably not peaceful.
Oh, no.
I say, looking at the 180 that all the Nordic countries have done from being Vikings over their Sweden.
So is this like their Thanksgiving, more or less? Except, actually, no, this would be more like my family Thanksgiving. Just
talking
yelling at each
politics
other
and voting on next year's resolutions. What shall we go for next year's vacation?
No, it's like, who's gonna host next year? All right, like, I'm gonna host, shit like that,
All right, you make your case before the jury. You make your case amongst.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you gotta make your case in front of the oldest members.
You would be surprised. For a good chunk of the Althing's history, it was effectively just a court. There's a point where it stops making laws and just starts judging people.
Hey, Bjorn
So just like the
cow.
elderly.
Yeah. So anyway, the Althing was first established in Thingvellir, Iceland in 930 CE. Is among the oldest national parliaments in the world. We will see why I'm saying that now and not, the oldest continuous democracy thing later, because there is a lot of asterisks next to that first phrase.
Oh, no.
Which we get to talk about today. Now, one of the fun things with this is that things are, in fact, the Scandinavian term for a representative assembly, making the term Althing the all assembly and Thingvellir the place of assembly. They are literally naming things on exactly what is happening.
I mean, it makes sense, why give it a fancy name when the name that just kind of already encompasses it?
Why use many word when few word do trick?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that works.
Yeah. It's like that. It's like, it's like, we don't need this house of common things. It's neither a house nor is it common.
Yeah. Also, apparently, there's a national park there.
Yeah.
At Thingvellir.
Oh yes, it is Thingvellir. In fact, the entire original site where they met is a UNESCO World Heritage Site today.
So be sure to tune in to our Heritage series. We might be doing a video on it. Spoiler alert.
I feel like that's gonna happen now.
Yeah. Now, one of the fun things about the Althing in 930, we're going to do a lot of wordplay across languages here. But one of the fun facts with it is that the Althing is actually the first thing to be established to operate on a national level.
It was the first thing?
Yeah, there were other smaller things that were established by the people on Iceland prior to this, but they were local and they were designed mostly so that a clan or group of clans could locally sort things out among each other without stabbing.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's like, because like once a year, they'll be like, instead of fighting, like right there, they'll be like, we'll settle this at the Althing.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm taking you to the thing. We're going to the thing right now.
This is the first semblance of national government. Now, people had been arriving on the island, and by people, I mean Scandinavians and Nordic Vikings, since 874. So it's about 60 years in that they realized, hey, this island needs a government.
See, but before then, it was smaller villages, smaller bands of people. It was a lot easier to manage. It didn't need that level of national government. Didn't need that much oversight.
Yeah, it was mostly just people and their neighbors meeting up to sort things out, namely, where the hell are my sheep?
Hashtag small Nordic government. Actually, in Iceland, they have an annual sheep roundup because most of the year they let their sheep free range.
Yeah, they do that in Wales too.
Yeah.
I was very surprised when we were walking and hiking, and all I saw was a bunch of sheep, and I thought we were in someone's pasture. So I was like looking for the fence, and the guy who was taking us hiking, he's like, "What are you looking for?" I go, "There's sheep over there. Are we in someone's field?" He goes, "No, they just hang out."
No,
we're just like,
no.
just hanging out.
Yeah.
The
like,
urge not to
why
make a
the
Welsh
railway
joke.
will never come to these countries.
The urge to make a Wales joke there, Aaron.
No, stop. No.
I am restraining.
Anyway.
I am restraining. I am being good, but whew, restraint.
Right, yes. So the Althing was in operation at Thingvellir from 930 to 1798. And this is where we get our first asterisk in oldest continuous democracy. Namely on the word continuous. As in 1800, the Kingdom of Denmark abolishes it.
Oh, the fucking Danes.
It says,
what the fuck?
Yeah, the Danish crown really does not like it. We'll get into a little bit why later, but suffice to say, Iceland was a democracy. It comes under the control of an absolute monarch in the form of Denmark, and absolute monarchs hate democracies.
That's
so
fair.
he just up and gets rid of it. It then is reestablished in 1845 in the Icelandic capital of Reykjavik, and it's been there ever since.
Reykjavik.
Yeah, it was the ability to keep the Icelandic people from voting on things really wasn't something Denmark could do.
I mean, it'd take them a while to get there and do anything.
Yeah.
But like, hey, don't do the old thing. They can just be like, okay. And then the guy just sails back and they just do it anyway without them knowing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they do. Yeah, Denmark had a real hard time keeping control of Iceland.
I mean, I wonder why. It's not like it's a few thousand kilometers away.
Yeah. And it's not like Denmark is tiny or has other problems.
Yeah, but they were able to project a lot of their power with the Dutch East Indies Company.
Yeah, that is true, but
wait,
when
wasn't...
you yeah, but
Wait.
a big part of why
Did you just have a realization
that the Dutch East Indies companies from
No, it's not.
the Netherlands are Dutch.
So why was it coming from Denmark?
Justin is trying to bamboozle me. I am working in like 2 different languages here. I speak neither of them. Anyway,
I thought I was
the Dutch. I was just trying to move on. I'm not going to go through this anymore.
That was
The
beautiful.
Dutch.
The setup.
The Dutch are not involved in this. The Danes, however, inherit Iceland at about the same time that they have a massive falling out with Norway and Sweden. So things get very spicy. We will talk about that more later on. We do have more details. This is just sort of like a general overview. Now there is one one year actually when the the Althing did not meet in Reykjavik as it was established, and that is the year 1944. Would anyone care to guess why without looking at the sheet?
Is that
1944. That sounds like a World War dose.
is it because Denmark got taken over?
The Electric Boogaloo.
No, it is. It is partially because Denmark got taken over a few years prior, but it is the result of that happening, not the not necessarily the direct cause. See, in 1944, Iceland's Althing went to Thingvellir, the traditional Icelandic center of democracy, to declare its independence from Denmark.
Oh, that's a good
Oh,
way to
that's
do it.
bad.
And held a
Badass.
special session at their original capital.
That is symbology 101. Like, if you want to establish a national identity and national pride when you're declaring independence, you go to the place where your ancestors held a democratic process. You harken back to the glory days. You make that call to the past. Plus, I don't think the Icelandic people wanted to be Nazis.
Yeah. Well, Iceland was never seriously threatened with invasion during World War II. In fact, they were regularly operated alongside American, Canadian, and British forces against the German U-boat threat in the mid-Atlantic.
And the
As
North
Iceland, as Iceland was the like one safe harbor that existed between the zone of aerial control between North America and Britain.
Sea. And the U-boats had an iron grip on the shipping corridors.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is, so Iceland is very much in camp ally for all of World War II. Opinions about the Danish people aside, they were very much in camp ally.
I'm so glad you're, like, cognizant about correctly naming them now. The Danes.
I'm gonna kill you at the end of this. I really am. That was mean. That was mean. We're recording. This is not the time. This is not the time to insult Netherlands.
It's always the time to insult the Netherlands, but okay. So
time at World War II and insulting Netherlands, everybody. That's 2 strikes on our card for the day.
Continuing on.
Anyway, after 1944, they go back to meeting in Reykjavik, and that's where they are today. The original location in Thingvellir is now a part of the Thingvellir National Park and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. With that, we're going to get a little bit more into some of the details of the Althing, because that's just the overview of what this was. It's a journey, folks.
Let's go see the thing.
Yeah.
Let's all go to the Althing today.
We're going on a trip in our
To our favorite rocket ship. To the
Althing.
Yeah.
Historical humans.
Human.
Yep. So the founding of the Althing in 930 marks the transition from the settlement era of Iceland to the Commonwealth era. Basically, from the time people start showing up to the time when they all actually vote on things. The Althing began with 32 clans of settlers coming together to annually settle their disputes in a peaceful manner. It'd been about 60 years since people had started arriving. Conflict was starting to get out of hand. Smaller things had been established to deal with local problems. But for the most part, there was no like overarching consensus of what the law of the land was for this massive volcanic island. And that's where the Althing was supposed to come in.
Probably not a need for it at the start. That was probably pretty easily settled amongst the groups. It wasn't until I'm sure there was some big conflict that everyone was like, all right, we need to get together and sort this out.
Well, I don't think it wasn't, I don't necessarily one massive conflict, but just simply the frequency of conflicts and the number of people on the island I believe finally started to reach 5 digits, at which point there was enough humans there to actually cause problems.
Too much quarreling, too much bickering.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, fun fact, violence, fighting, raiding still occurred with the formation of the Althing. In fact, several times it occurs at Thingvellir.
Oh no!
Oh no!
A number of Icelandic sagas record these battles. And honest to goodness, several of them are glorified.
Oof.
I guess that the winning side wrote that part then, huh?
History is written by the victor. We know that.
Yeah. Or if you're in Iceland, Snorri Sturluson.
Yeah.
A man with a more alliterate name than me.
Snorri Slur. Oh god, that's a hard one to say.
Yep. We're going to talk about him later. He is fun.
Oh, so you met your historical counterpart. Got it.
Yep. He is very fun. The man wanted to fist fight 6 people who came to lynch him.
I mean,
At
I
the
would
age of,
too.
like 50.
I 100% would too. I would fight them as well.
He gets so preview for the Snorri Sturluson part. He gets elected law speaker, which is effectively the head of the Althing. And like a half dozen or so of his political opponents come to his house in the night, heavily armed, to murder him. And he has to be talked into being smuggled out of the house.
Oh my god.
Because he wants to punch them to death, even though he's in his 50s.
I mean,
okay, you know what? I've got some respect.
He was probably a tough cookie too. I have no doubts in my mind.
He's just like, nobody disrupts my beauty sleep and gets away with it.
He also wrote most of the aforementioned Icelandic sagas.
Yeah. I remember that part.
He wrote the sagas.
That's sagas!
He is considered one of the world's most important medieval historians.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that one from my class.
Yeah. He is also probably the only reason why I knew what the Althing was and why this topic came on our radar. So congratulations, Snorri. You're doing work from beyond the grave.
Some people just want to watch the world learn.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. But yes, the Althing serves as a common and neutral gathering place at Thingvellir here. And it begins to form a common Icelandic national identity. As all 32 clans just showed up every year, they actually didn't really build anything. They just sort of camped at Thingvellir and talked things out, and then they went home. If you didn't have a problem, you didn't really need to show up.
Yeah, I guess.
They settled dispute.
Go
Yep.
camping for a few days.
Yep.
Work out your problems.
Yep. At its shortest, the Thingvellir lasted. The Althing lasted for 4 days out of the year.
So they were just lads being lads. Like,
Yeah.
they're just like, all right, we're going to work out our differences on the family camping trip.
Yeah, I imagine they're sitting around the campfire singing campfire songs.
Yeah.
I have the talking stick. I get to speak now.
It's a typical Althing lasts between 4 and 14 days during this period.
That's great.
Yeah, 2 weeks. That's efficient.
Wait,
Yeah.
so they? You're right, because they now do the Althing in Reykjavik. Can we just see it happen once out there, like on an anniversary or something?
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be cool.
Well, they did it on the day of their Declaration of Independence.
Well, yeah, but do it again.
I don't know if they have. Otherwise, it's currently a national park, so I think they're keeping it as a heritage site rather than an active site.
True, I guess, but still symbolic. Be cool.
Yeah, it would be fun. It would be fun.
So I assume they do it.
Let's go there again in 2044.
Yeah, so I
Something
assume
like that.
So I assume they do it in a building now. I don't imagine they're like in a city park.
Oh yeah, no. It took the current building in Reykjavik took over 30 years to construct. It's very elaborate. It's actually the most commonly photographed building in Iceland, mostly because it gets in the news every other week because the Icelandic people are very politically active and they always protest outside it.
Are they really?
It's a small island too, so I guarantee they recognize people.
They are extremely proactive about their democracy.
I'm glad.
Um,
I
it's
wish.
actually a little scary, and this is an American talking.
Yeah, that's because when we participate, we make a big deal out of it, and nothing actually ends up happening.
Yeah, no,
Do
And
they
when they
protest?
do it, they actually get things done because they're literally kicking the shit out of their cousins.
Does
it's called good faith operating.
Yeah.
so? My question is, do they protest more than the French?
No, the French skip the protest and go straight to riot. Like,
I would stand with this
protest
too.
and riot are probably the same word in
And
French.
that's European slander for two.
Actually, no, I love it. I love the French for doing this. I've realized these past few years I have a lot in common with the French people. I like bread. I love a good riot.
Just wait
And
till you
as
end up
far,
at the guillotine.
listen, I'm the one fucking pulling, like, I'm not doing guillotine. I'm doing like executioner hammer or axe.
Anyway,
And also, from what I understand, the rest of France hates Paris.
So it's like pretty much every
That-
other country in their major city.
that
Or at least
Also-
just Parisians.
also hating on Paris is kind of a global thing at this point.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd like
everyone
to go,
wants to
like,
take it
once.
over.
I'll
Yeah.
go once, but
Anyway.
that's just so I can do the tourist thing.
Anyway, back to the North Atlantic here.
Bum, bum, ba-da-dum,
I also want to go to
ba-da-dum, bum,
Reykjavik.
ba-da-dum.
Let's go.
Yeah, I really do want to go to
Reykjavik.
Iceland.
Yeah, Reykjavik is fun.
Hey, if there's any Icelandic people who wants to help us go,
Yeah, we go on a field
comment
trip.
down below.
Absolutely, yeah.
So at this point in time, during the Commonwealth era, the primary purpose of the Althing was, in addition to settling disputes, was also to promote the establishment of new laws, remind everyone what the current laws were, and allow people to learn what was happening on the other side of the island. This was the primary point of information exchange. There are no newspapers, there are no cell phones. There is literally only this.
I also would like to imagine that some of it was just petty, like, Soren, remember, there is no theft of other people's sheep.
I don't know what
It's
you're
like-
talking about. He's got like a sheep hiding under like
Yeah,
his tunic or whatever.
His tunic just bars.
Yeah, he's doing
excuse
what
me.
is it, the horse and the popsicle trick? It's
Yeah.
just the back pockets just got a bunch of wheat. Wheat in the sheep. Yeah. Now, the Althing during this period strived to keep power local. It resolved disputes and established common laws, but did not impose a central government. There are no permanent structures here. The clans simply showed up and camped whenever the Althing was called for. It really, they really didn't leave much behind. Presently, if you go to Thingvellir, there's only a handful of crumbling, mostly submerged walls that are any sign that there was an actual major settlement here for any period of time.
That's so
It's
cool.
it's very much an impermanent site. Like, you would have to do full-scale archaeological excavations to know that this was a place people met at almost every year for 800 years.
Don't
I mean,
threaten me
it's
with a
pretty
good
much
time.
it's like Stonehenge for the first 1,000 years.
Yeah.
We still don't really know what, like, specifically Stonehenge was probably for.
We know people met there though annually, and we know they met there
Yeah.
for thousands of years before the stones were erected.
The big question for that is like how permanently settled people were for a long time.
True, but anyways, people like to go and camp in the middle of places. I like to think about, like, Woodstock is an archaeological site now. It is both old enough and there are excavations that have taken place.
Yep.
So impermanent settlements can be archaeology sites.
Yep. And this particular impermanent settlement does start to do some things to establish sort of overall governance on Iceland. In 965, 35 years after its founding, it divides Iceland into 4 quarters for judicial purposes. Each quarter is given 36 judges, and for a verdict to be passed, 31 of the 36 judges had to agree on that the person was either innocent or guilty.
God damn.
That's a pretty slim margin of
Yeah.
dissent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Verdicts by these judges would receive sentencing at the Althing. The judges don't sentence you. It's the Althing that does.
So
That is 86%, by the way. You need a B plus ish average to pass.
Yeah. The idea
So-
was that this is Iceland. There's a lot of bad blood between people at this time. There's a lot of clan disputes. So to prevent people from being petty or from stacking the judiciary one way or the other, in order to get someone convicted of a crime, everyone has to agree that the crime occurred and this person was the one that did it.
A true majority.
Yeah, the bar of evidence is set very high. And then
Yeah.
to further take away the concept of vindictiveness, the judges don't sentence. It's the Althing that sentences. The Althing is made up of all the clans from around the entire island. So there is no, oh, you're a McConnell. A McConnell is always going to lash out against an O'Heal.
And you
So-
bring Irish politics into this. That's one ding towards you for Europe.
Hey,
So-
I am. We got the French over there. We got the Dutch down here. I'm bringing in the Irish.
So,
Which, fun fact, some of the clans were actually Scots and Irish.
Oh, beautiful.
that's no surprise there.
It's almost
So-
like they were also
Was,
populated by.
was,
Yeah, the like 5 main demographics that end up settling this island are Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, Scottish, and Irish.
So, who like mediates everything? Like, is there like a special like setup from each clan that like helps
Yeah.
like mediate?
Yeah, so the Althing has 2 key parts. The first is there are the chieftains. Each clan sends a chieftain. Each chieftain gets a vote. Chieftains are accompanied by advisors who can inform them of things, talk about things, do things they need, but the advisors can't vote. They are all overseen by a law speaker. The Althing appoints its own law speaker. The purpose of the law speaker is to stand on the law rock and proclaim at the start of each Althing all the laws of Iceland that have been thus far established, and to read out the agenda for the current Althing.
He who stands on the law rock is the law speaker.
Yeah, and this was actually the most respected position in all of Iceland, not simply for its seemingly nominal political power, but because the Althing was founded before a written Icelandic language existed, meaning that whoever was up there had to be educated enough to be able to recite verbatim from memory a mountain of legalese.
Dude, that's fucking awesome.
So
Listen, I know, like we, like human, like I feel like we just have shitty memories compared to like that because like you got people who were like reciting law code in Iceland. You had
Yep.
people in ancient Greece that just spoke the entire Iliad and Odyssey as we know it.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, that was the original way of note-taking and document-taking, was literally oral traditions. You would remember the traditions, and there have been studies done that have shown certain accuracies with oral tradition.
Mhm.
It was a viable method of translation and transmission.
Yeah, it was. It was, and there's been a major shift in the last 100 years towards human beings as sort of data banks for memory to human beings as just more generally creative problem solvers, as we haven't need to store all the math and history directly in our brains so much.
Why need do that when I look up?
Yep. There is, in the 11th century, the Althing does undergo one of its key changes, which is where they add a court of appeals to the structure. A 5th court is made, consisting of 48 judges who are appointed by the chieftains of the Althing, These judges reach consensus based on a majority vote. And as I understand it, it was a simple majority. So it's really hard to get convicted. Getting unconvicted a little bit easier.
At least they gave you a chance to finally plead your case 200 years later, 300 years later. After a bunch of wrongful convictions, they're like, oh, maybe Olaf didn't actually kill that man and we shouldn't have convicted him.
Yeah, it took them about 100 years to realize that, hang on, something's not quite working here.
You mean Sven was innocent?
Which Sven?
Oh,
Sven Olafsson.
Sven.
Oh, Sven Svensson.
Yeah. The Althing additionally had a pretty interesting record on women's rights. For example, a woman could claim she is unsatisfied in her marriage and legally seek a divorce.
Oof. But good for her.
Yeah. On the other hand, witchcraft. People were regularly drowned in the river for it.
I mean, you got to keep your villages free of witches. What can I tell? What can I say?
So it's kind of 50-50. On the one hand, basic human decency. On the other hand, persecution. It's the 11th century, guys.
Progressive, at least. Women could get divorced.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church hadn't split about that for another 300 years, 200 years.
Yeah. Beauty of being a mostly Scandinavian colony. You don't actually listen to anyone on religion.
Yeah, they got a little there's a lot of conflicting things going on. They finally settled down. Being Norse and stuff. Then suddenly Norway, Denmark, and Sweden are Christian, and then they're like, wait, when did this happen? And then that kind of happened. So you kind of gotta live with each other. So kind of have to make do.
Yep. And
Nordic folk make do.
Yep. And that's actually going to bring us, I think, because we covered a lot of the other stuff here. It's going to bring us back around to Snorri Sturluson.
Snorri Sturluson, holy.
Yeah. He is a very fun law speaker. He's the reason we're doing this episode, so thank you to him. One of the key things that we haven't talked about with Snorri is that he was law speaker during a period of what was effectively civil war on Iceland, and after his death, which does mark the transition from the Commonwealth era to Iceland becoming part of the Kingdom of Norway, a 20-year-long war between Norway and Iceland breaks out.
Oh, wow.
20, jeez.
Yep. Yeah. Because Snorri dies in 1241, and after 2 decades of warfare, Norway officially takes over Iceland in 1260. A lot of it had to do with its pretty sporadic warfare, and it's mostly the logistics of shipping people from Norway to Iceland to fight, and then Iceland being absolutely inhospitable to them. Yeah, that brings us back to Snorri there. He's a very fun guy. He deserves his own Icelandic saga. Sadly, no one has written one for him. I mean, anyone who tries to fist fight 6 people coming to lynch him.
I mean, that's fair.
I would too. Again, I 100% agree with his mentality there. If they're coming for me, I'm going to protect myself at all costs.
He is a 50-year-old man, and he wants to go punch the heavily armed mob. Okay.
If they're coming after me, it's game on. It's on site. They catching these hands.
Yeah, no. Yeah, instead of doing the smart thing and, running and hiding and getting all of your friends to go beat them up. No, let's just fight them now.
You nip it in the bud. You stop the problem before it starts.
Yeah. Oh, it'll stop the problem, all right. The problem is you. But, yep. So, yeah, funny thing with the Althing is that they're actually allowed to exercise their authority unchallenged for centuries, even after they become a part of the Kingdom of Norway in the 13th century. And this is because, despite fighting a major war to get control of the territory, Norway had little interest in actively governing it.
Well, yeah, it was hard enough fighting for it.
Yeah.
It's hard as hell to maintain an active and like regular base there. Plus,
Yeah.
their stuff works. Why
Yeah,
mess with a good thing?
Yeah, it's distant, and as long as they pay, lip service to the King of Norway, everything is mostly fine. The Norwegians simply added the King of Norway to the top of the Icelandic government and let it be. This did do one thing to undermine the Althing, as the Althing has existed as a combination of judiciary and legislator at this point. And that was, there was now a second round of appeals. If you didn't like the Althing's decision during the Court of Appeals, or if you didn't like a law that the Althing had written, you could appeal it to the King of Norway. And if he heard your case, he might actually undo the laws or rulings of the Althing. But for the most part, Norway did not care what Iceland did with itself. There's also a number of institutional changes. For one thing, instead of the 32 clan chieftains meeting, there are now elections of the 32 sheriffs of the 32 different governing municipalities that Norway puts in place.
Oh, so now there's actual distribution of power. Although, to be fair, they didn't really say how the chieftains were elected.
Yeah,
it
doesn't specify that. The vote is extremely limited at this time. Again, at most, it's landed male of age. At most. Additionally, 2 law speakers are appointed instead of 1, as the administrative duties tend to expand. The need for infrastructure grows with them. And the Althing shifts away from being a legislature and becomes more of a Supreme Court, because the King of Norway keeps issuing all these edicts that really undermines the ability of the Althing to make any laws whatsoever. So they stick to enforcing them rather than making them.
I mean, sometimes you just gotta play to your strengths. You don't have to worry about making laws. You just gotta enforce them.
Yeah.
Call her a day.
Yeah. And this goes fairly well until about 1523.
Oh, no.
Because 1523 sees the collapse of what is known as the Kalmar Union. Now, the Kalmar Union was set up in 1397 by the widowed Queen of Norway and Sweden, that effectively unified the kingdoms of Norway, Sweden, and Denmark into a single political entity, along with all their holdings, which at the time included Iceland. The collapse of the Kalmar Union led to a major reshuffling of whose territories were whose. And at the end of it, Denmark holds Iceland rather than Norway. This is generally due to a power shift that comes with the collapse. Basically, Norway and Sweden aren't preeminent, but Denmark is. So Denmark gets the fancy overseas colony.
God dang it, Denmark.
Denmark hates this.
Really?
Or at the very least, they hate Iceland for a good chunk of this, as the Danish kings decided that they wanted direct rule over Iceland. The Althing disagrees with them very strongly on this point. And for the next 140 years, they just start chipping away at the authority of Iceland and of the Althing and of the ability of Icelanders to run their own lives.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And in 1662, the King of Denmark assumes direct and total control of Iceland. They assume absolute power. However, the Althing is not dissolved. It gets to continue to exist in a very weakened form, subservient to the King of Denmark until the year 1800, when they do away with it entirely. They disavow any semblance of democracy or courts, as it is no longer favorable to the Danish kings to have all these people elected by Iceland administering the king's justice in Iceland. So instead, they abolished the Althing of Thingvellir and established the High Court in Reykjavik. Now, the High Court is effectively the King of Denmark sends a bunch of Danish people over to Iceland to tell the Icelanders what the law is and to rule on things.
Yeah, because clearly the Althing wasn't working well enough. They had to just kind of go in there and institute their own way because we clearly know better.
Well, it's not so much about knowing better. It's about the fact that the Althing was answering to the needs of the people of Iceland and not the needs of the King of Denmark.
Exactly. It wasn't working.
God forbid, you know.
Yeah, God forbid the democracy actually answered to the people and not the king 1,000 miles away.
I do find it mildly interesting, though, the fact that, with that being said, the Althing represented democracy, but it was always subservient to someone else for a good portion of its history.
Yeah, well, it's sort of it is sort of like the American legislatures during the colonial period. The Americans get to elect whoever they want to, affect, to run their own little parliaments in Virginia and Georgia and New York, but those parliaments answer to the King of England. It's kind of how that worked. And everyone knows distant monarchs interfering with the basic form of democracy is never a good thing. It never works out for anyone.
Oh, unfortunate.
Yeah.
Still kind of impressive, though, that the Kalmar Union dissolved in 1523, and it wasn't until 1662 that absolute power was taken over.
Yeah,
like, that's a 100-something years. 129, I think?
Yeah, it's about 140 years.
Sheesh.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of the reason for that was the Althing had been there since 930. It was long established, and at 1523, it had close to 300 years of operating under a distant monarch. So it already knew how to get around and how to work with an absentee king.
So when they started exercising more absolute control, it didn't work out all that well.
Yeah, the Althing had all the tricks already in place for yes, go away, to sort of get around how to do this. And that's why it took so long for Denmark to really get Iceland under control.
But then they finally got rid of it.
Yeah, they're able to get rid of it for all of 40 years.
That's a pretty good amount of time. That's a generation,
Yeah. Yeah, because in 1843, a royal Danish decree reestablishes the Althing in Reykjavik, which is also recognized as the provincial capital of Iceland. It takes 2 years for the Althing to reconvene, 1 year for the news to get there, and 1 year for elections. And in 1845, the Althing reopens with 26 members. 20 nationally elected officials, one from each of the 20 Danish counties now in place on Iceland, and 6 people appointed directly by the king. You can have your democracy, but only if it's a fraud.
I want my say in it.
Yeah. The elections were used under the Danish model because the Danes at this point did have elections for men of over 25 who met certain economic standards, of which One source I found proclaimed that only 5% of the entire population of Iceland was able to meet.
Wow.
And fun fact, those standards for voting were also the standards for holding office.
Which is?
Yeah. It was males over 25, and you had to meet certain economic standards, I believe, not all of which involve land ownership, but rather total accumulation of wealth. Fun fact, well, goats and sheep did represent wealth, they were not necessarily worth that much. And so it was kind of hard to get up to the standard. You needed a lot of them.
Ah.
You know, it's like, you own 50 sheep, maybe not enough. You own 500, maybe you meet it.
Of course. For the
Yeah.
rich and the wealthy.
Things like that. Iceland at this time had about 60,000 people. So 5% of that is something like 2,400 people in the entire country are able to run in or vote in elections.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot, but it was at least more democratic that way.
Yeah, about 3,000 actually, sorry.
Oh.
In 1874, the new Icelandic constitution is established, which grants the Althing of Iceland joint legislative powers with the King of Denmark, but only on matters pertaining to Iceland.
Naturally. I mean,
Yeah.
to have Iceland having the power to make Danish laws a little wonky, eh?
Yeah, that would never happen. In 1889, the Althing's current residence in Reykjavik was opened. And this is the building that Icelandic people regularly protest outside of whenever something's not getting done.
Again, good for them. A good protest is very democratic.
It's very good. It is peaceful protest. It not. It does not devolve into rioting like in other countries.
Be a lot cooler if it did.
Yeah. And the Althing, immediately upon getting all this infrastructure and reestablishment, just starts trying to like slowly push Denmark back off into the ocean. Yeah. The 20 of the 26 that are elected really don't like being a part of Denmark, and just absolutely try to sabotage every chance they get. In fact, they're reestablished in 1845. They get their building in 1889, and by 1904, they have successfully achieved home rule. What this is it's the ability to govern yourself directly within set boundaries, which means that it's no longer a process of the Althing proposes something and then the King of Denmark gets to look at it and make changes and send it back. But instead, the King of Denmark sets, policy areas that Iceland has autonomy in, and Iceland gets to do whatever they want there. So, for example, Iceland cannot make peace or declare wars, but Iceland can do all of the, regulations on its own domestic products.
We will allow a certain amount of fish export kind of deal.
Yeah.
We declare war on all of Scandinavia.
Yeah. Yeah, things
Screw
like
you,
that.
Finland.
Yeah, a lot of U.S. counties and even, the U.S. states tend to operate in this manner. The federal government has set rules, and the states can do more or less whatever they want, provided it doesn't violate the set rules.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So they effectively have statehood at this point. 1915, voting rights are granted to women.
Yay.
As Iceland steadily tries to work itself towards a full democracy here.
That is very impressive, and that is right in the heart of the suffragette movement.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is early suffragist time. It's another decade before America even gets its act together to do this.
Yeah, but America's always 15 to 20 years behind the rest of the world in terms
Yeah.
of social movements.
Yeah.
Call a
That is
spade a
usually-
spade.
Yeah. That's usually how it goes.
I mean, we were literally one of the last to abolish slavery.
Yeah. Yeah, that was mostly because England couldn't interfere with our shipping. Yeah, looking at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. God dang it, we're so massive. Iceland then joins Denmark in personal union in 1918. Now, this is the big step for Iceland. Because what a personal union means is that Iceland is acknowledged as an equal partner with Denmark. This is nominally what happened when England became the United Kingdom.
Oh,
I say nominally because it's much more equal between Iceland and Denmark than it was between the Irish, Scotland, and England.
You always
Wales.
forget about the Wales. You always forget
The
about
Welsh,
Wales.
yeah, the Welsh. Oh,
If
I
the
forgot.
entire West End sunk into the sea, England would not notice.
Yeah, they would, because then they could get their fancy woolen sweaters that they all love to wear. And the Welsh wouldn't have their girlfriends.
Yeah. Anyway, with this, the Althing has full legislative autonomy for the first time in almost 700 years.
Well,
They
finally.
become a full governing body. It is they don't have to answer to any foreign power in any way. Additionally, there is a 25-year lease on the union. After 25 years, if either side really wants to, they can vote to leave.
Wow. That's a lot of power, especially in these unions that tend not to be the most favorable for these smaller nations.
And honestly, I think it's because at this point, Denmark finds Iceland a headache, and Iceland finds Denmark a nuisance. And so they both agree to just, let's try to work together as equals before breaking off. Now, fun fact, during this union, Denmark is still responsible for the entire military defense of Iceland.
Which makes sense for the smaller state to have a protectorate. But the fact that they both have a ripcord in case emergency, that I find to be really impressive.
Yeah, that's very impressive. And that ripcord is going to definitely be pulled very early on here, as again, Denmark being responsible for the defense of Iceland. And 25 years from 1918 is the middle of a massive conflict.
Gee, what could have been happening during the mid-1940s?
Yeah.
Good question.
Fun fact, Iceland gets to pull that ripcord a few years early in 1940 when they take on the full responsibilities of a fully autonomous nation because Denmark ceases to exist.
There you go.
Germany conquers Denmark in 1940, meaning that Iceland is left without an equal partner in its union and without any military. So they immediately just declare themselves, we are the nation of Iceland. We will take on the defense of Iceland, and we will try to liberate Denmark because we're kind of not liking the people who kicked you out even more than we don't like you.
Which, for the reference to, for those of you playing at home, the German U-boats did not discriminate what boats they fired at, which included a lot of Icelandic fishing vessels, which at this point, Iceland, that was 90% of their nation's revenue was due to their fishing, because the waters outside of their island are some of the most prosperous for North Atlantic fish you can find.
It's very delicious.
So the fact that Germany was harassing them, they weren't too keen on that. And yeah, the fact that their partner just ceased to exist tends to not be the nicest way to dissolve a union.
Yeah, and seeing their position in the North Atlantic was ideal for safe harbors and military bases, it's not too hard to get the British, the Americans, and the Canadians to all agree to recognize you as a country if you so choose to do so at the end of the war, in exchange for sheltering all their ships that are being chased by all the angry German submarines.
I think you also miss one of the big important points, too, that we highlighted before the episode, of that this is one of the only safe harbors. The fact that they were friendly to the Allies meant the Allies would protect them.
Yep, the Allies would protect them, and hey, you agree that I'm a country, and in return, I'll shelter all your supply convoys. Deal.
Jeez.
Yeah, and before the war even ends, before Denmark comes back into existence in 1944, Iceland declares independence from Denmark and declares itself its own sovereign state.
I mean, that's perfectly within their 25 years, isn't it?
Yeah, the 25-year actually said that it would occur. Actually, would have had it occur in December of 1943. Was when they would be allowed to take the vote. So they take the vote at the allotted time, and in 1944 they are made a new country.
Oh my God! So they even followed the diplomatic process.
They followed the union thing to a T. They assumed the responsibilities because the half that was supposed to provide the military ceased to exist. And then they just waited until this contract was over because they knew Britain's plan for the post-war world was to just reestablish every country that ceased to exist. So they were like, no.
Hey guys, remember I sheltered your ships? I'm a country, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things just like, it's like we just need this war to last another year and we'll be fine. So they actually get it off in the middle of the year. They are able to officially declare themselves independent country. Yeah, victory in Europe has not been achieved at this point. The Allies are currently fighting in northern Italy, Western Germany, parts of France,
North Africa for a good portion at the beginning of the year.
The Belgians, yeah. I believe the Battle of the Bulge, the Battle of Bastogne is going on at the time that Iceland is declaring its independence.
This is a point in which countries were falling apart and no longer ceasing to exist after being occupied. And then Iceland's here like, hello, we are a new country. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. They declared themselves the Republic of Iceland. They went to Thingvellir, and they celebrated their independence.
God, the call
the
to
ceremony at the original site,
where it continues to this day, where all the chieftains come.
Yeah, and it is it occurred on June 17th, 1944, the official Independence Day and the official ceremony.
So I think that would be a good time to go visit, June 17th.
Go steal the Icelandic flags.
Yes.
No. Why would we steal
that?
Wait, that's too American. We are not Americans in that regard. There is no freedom to be distributed.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about the flags there for a second. I'm like, what are you talking about? They have like a whole banner parade for this. They celebrate.
Yes, but if you were trying to steal their flags, if we are given a flag, that is a different.
Oh no, we're not stealing their flags. No, of course not.
We shall raise the flags at dawn.
Just all their flags are going to have a mysterious number of stars attached to them suddenly.
Oh no!
That's the American way.
Oh, I hate it.
That's the American way, Justin, and you both know that.
I think this is an interesting one, and I see where the asterisks come in. So what is the longest continuous democracy currently then? Do you know that answer?
Well, Iceland and its Althing likes to claim that.
It's bullshit. They dissolved for 43 years.
Yeah, there's that blip there. There's the subservience to king things. There are a couple of contenders for that potentially. Um, one of them is if you listen to America. Um, another would be uh, the I want to say they're not called constitutions, they're parliaments. I want to say
Oh yeah, yeah.
in in um in the Netherlands and in Britain. Both like to claim a long history. The British one usually gets discounted on account of the fact that Britain was a monarchy, albeit a constitutional one, for most of the time that Britain had a parliament.
Not to mention Cromwell.
Yeah,
Oh,
not
yeah,
to
we forgot
mention
about that.
also that most of British Parliament's history consists of a non-elected parliament, but see the House of Lords
Yeah.
for why that is. So as far as like elective legislatures and goes, I think the Netherlands is another major contender, beating out the United States by less than a century.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is a good point for us to wrap up then. It's been a great episode of talking about the Althing and many of the things that Iceland is great at.
Yeah. However, yeah, because like the Netherlands had a parliament from 1581 to 1806, with a interlude of not existing for about 5 years,
Mm.
and then coming back.
Oh, shame.
Yeah.
But that'll be it for today's podcast episode. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked it, leave a comment down below, drop a like, and we will see you in the next video.
Bye.